It matters if you just don't give up. Hello everyone, welcome back to English class. I hope you all are fine and doing your work properly. So dear students, today we are going to start a new chapter from the book Honeydew. Name of the chapter is A Visit to Cambridge, and yes, it is very interesting chapter. And first of all, let's have a look on the author. Fidos Kanga is an Indian writer and actor who lives in London. He has written a novel trying to grow a semi-autobiographical novel set in India and a travel book Heaven on Wheels about his experiences in the United Kingdom. And today's chapter has been taken from the book Heaven on Wheels, and obviously the quote, it matters if you just don't give up. Here is the picture of Fedos Ganga. Okay, and yes, lesson number 7. Before to start, let's have a quick look on the introduction. So dear students, this is the story of a meeting between two extraordinary people, both of them disabled or differently able, because as today's time we are using these words, differently abled. Okay, Stephen Hawking is one of the greatest. Dear students, this chapter has been written earlier when he was alive, but now, yes, everybody knows Stephen Hawking was no more, is no more now, so we can use was. Okay, so was one of the greatest scientists of our time. He suffered from a form of paralysis that confines him to a wheelchair and allows him to speak only by punching buttons on a computer which speaks for him in a machine like voice. And Fidoz is a writer and journalist who lives and works in Mumbai. Kanga was born with brittle bones that tended to break easily when he was a child. Like Hawking, Kanga moves around in a wheelchair. The two great men exchanged thoughts on what it means to live life in a wheelchair and on how the so-called normal people react to the disabled. So two differently abled persons met somewhere in UK, and how they shared their views, their lives, and their experiences on a wheelchair, and how they are doing it, how are they uh, coping up with different type of people. Okay, so let's start. And yes, I have prepared a slide also about Stephen Hawking. So as you can see, uh, the age and the date of birth and date of death, 2018. And he was an English theoretical physicist, cosmologist, and author who was director of research at the Center for Theoretical Cosmologist, the University of Cambridge, at the time of his death. And he was the professor of mathematician at the University of Cambridge between 1979 and 2009. Here is the picture of Stephen Hawking, right? So I think no introduction is required for him because everybody knows about him and about his researches. So let's start. Page number 100, right? At the beginning, see, Cambridge was my metaphor for England, and it was strange that when I left it had become altogether something else because I had met Stephen Hawking there. Okay, so metaphor, a thing regarded as representative or symbolic of something else. So the author begins by telling the readers that at some point in life, England only meant Cambridge for him and nothing more. Okay, so he further remarked that after his meeting with Stephen Hawking, the meaning and relevance of England in his life changed completely. It was on a walking tour through Cambridge that the guide mentioned Stephen Hawking, poor man who is quite disabled now, though he is a worthy successor to Isaac Newton, whose chair he has at the university. Okay, so the author mentions that he happened to be on a walking tour through Cambridge when his guide spoke about Stephen Hawking. The guide called him a poor man. The guide called Stephen Hawking a poor man because he was differently abled. He even told the author that Stephen Hawking now holds the position in the university which was earlier held by Newton. So yes, differently abled from the body only, but from the mind he was a genius. Okay, and he held the position of a chief, okay, a chief professor, a very honored position in the university which was earlier held by the Newton, right? And I started because I had quite forgotten that this most brilliant and completely paralyzed astrophysicist, the author of A Brief History of Time, one of the biggest bestseller ever, lived here. Okay, so what he said, the author reveals that before the guide had mentioned, he had forgotten that Stephen Hawking, most brilliant and completely paralyzed astrophysicist, the author of one of the biggest bestsellers ever, A Brief History of Time, lived here. So astrophysicist meaning is given in the book, scholar of astrophysics, branch of physics dealing with stars, planets, etc. Right? So here he was also the writer of a book, A Brief History of Time. When the walking tour was done, you can see on the page number 101 at the beginning, first pair of this page. When the walking tour was done, I rushed to a phone booth and almost tearing the cord so it could reach me outside, phoned Stephen Hawking's house. There was his assistant on the line, and I told him I had come in a wheelchair from India. Perhaps he thought I had propelled myself all the way to write about my travels in Britain. I had to see Professor Hawking. Even 10 minutes would do. Half an hour, he said, from 30 minutes to 4. Okay, so propelled word is here and the meaning is also here. Drive or push something forward. Okay, means come. So once the walking tour came to an end, walking tour of Britain came to an end, the author hurried to the nearest phone booth and stretched the cord to the extent of almost tearing it so that it could reach him outside the booth, as he was not able to enter the booth because of his wheelchair. So because he was in a wheelchair, so he just stretched the cord. He called Stephen Hawking's residence, where his assistant answered the call. Assistant of Stephen Hawking answered the call. The author introduced himself as someone who came all the way from India, right? See, which the assistant must have taken in the literal sense that he traveled all the way from India on a wheelchair. As he said, I had come in a wheelchair from India, means might be he came on, yes, the wheelchair, which was not possible, to write about his traveling experiences in Britain. The author explained that he needed to see Professor Hawking even if it meant only for 10 minutes, but the assistant gave him a 30-minute slot from 3:30 to 4 for the next day. So the appointment, he needed only 10 minutes, but the assistant gave him 30 minutes slot, and the timing was 3:30 to 4. Okay, remember, right? Next, and suddenly I felt weak all over. Growing up disabled, you get fed up with people asking you to be brave, as if you have a courage account on which you are too lazy to draw a check. The only thing that makes you stronger is seeing somebody like you achieving something huge. Then you know how much is possible and you reach out further than you ever thought you could. I haven't been brave, said his disembodied computer voice. The next afternoon, I have had no choice. So the author began feeling weak at that moment. He relates how one is constantly told to be brave and cheerful when you grow up being differently able, as if it were that easy, right? As the author was growing disabled and everybody used to say him, be strong, so he got fed up from listening all the these kind of things from everyone, so it was not easy for them, right? So he mentions that people think one who is different is just lazy to draw a check on their courage account. In such a situation, the only thing that gives you courage and strength is seeing people like you do something big. Okay, the writer was also differently abled, and he was going to meet Stephen Hawking, right? And he was also differently abled. So two different type of differently abled persons is going to meet. So when he was thinking about the scene, so the author was saying that it was very it gives you courage, it gives you strength when you are going to meet, when you are going to see the same people and they are doing the huge things, right? The person who has a fit body is not able to do the same thing as the differently able persons are doing. So it is only then you know there is hope and possibility which makes you go beyond your limits and imagination. Okay, so only with the help of these persons or their motivation you would be able to do something different. So here is the word is embodied, which means separated from the body, separated from the body. So the next afternoon when he went to see him, Stephen Hawking told him that he had not been brave. He spoke in his disembodied computer voice that he had no other option. Okay, as he was not able to, as the Stephen Hawking was not able to speak, he used computer voice, and some punching machine was there, and with the help of that button, the computer was able to speak on behalf of Stephen Hawking, and the computer voice told that I have had no choice. Surely, I wanted to say living creatively with the reality of his disintegrated body was a choice, but I kept quiet because I felt guilty every time I spoke to him, forcing him to respond. There he was, tapping at the little switch in his hand, trying to find the words on his computer with the only bit of movement left to him, his long pale fingers. Every so often his eyes would shut in frustrated exhaustion, and sitting opposite him I could feel his anguish, the mind buoyant with thoughts that came out in frozen phrases and sentences stiff as corpse. Okay, listen carefully, dear students. The meeting has been started of two differently abled and yes, the great personalities. The author wanted to reply that living so creatively, even with his disabilities, was a brave choice, but he refrained from doing so as his guilt took over every time he pushed Stephen Hawking to respond by talking to him. Obviously, if the writer has had gone there to meet him, the Hawking would reply. So whenever the Stephen Hawking was trying to speak something, so every time the author was feeling very guilty because he was thinking like he was hurting him by asking him the answers, right? So he spoke by finding the words on his computer and then tapping a little switch in his hand with the only remaining movement left in his pale and long fingers. Okay, because every he was able to just move the fingers, and with the help of his pale fingers he was just finding the words from the computer. Okay, he would get easily fatigued and would shut his eyes every now and then in frustration. And yes, frustrated exhaustion, tiredness was there, and yes, he was just uh, shutting his eyes. Who? Stephen Hawking. The author mentions how he could feel Hawking's pain as the thoughts in his intensely active and vibrant mind came out emotionless and stiff as a corpse. Okay, so intensively active, here is the word buoyant, which means intensively active and vibrant. Okay, so anguish, mental or physical pain. So every time the Hawking's pain, he could feel, because as the thoughts in his intensively active and vibrant mind came out emotionless, and because very many different types of thoughts were moving our minds or in his minds also. And if we talk about Stephen Hawking, he was not able to express in the same way as they were moving in his mind, in the same active way or a vibrant way. Suppose if you want to show your angers, right, angry words are moving in your mind, obviously you will express your emotions with angerness with your face, with your eyes, etc. Similarly, if you want to smile, if you are happy, then you will give a smile. And but if we talk about Stephen Hawking, he was not able to show his expressions, right? So what happened? I could feel his anguish. The mind point with thoughts, means many intensely vibrant thoughts were moving, but they are coming out as a frozen phrases, means emotionless. No emotions were there, only are words were there without emotion. So the impact was not as not as effective as we used to speak every day. So here is the end of today's part. So keep reading the chapter. Thank you.